Hello, welcome to India Business Hour. I'm Parikshit Luthra. Here are the headlines we are tracking this evening.
When we are at 5 and our target is 4, I would feel it is too premature to talk about interest rate cuts.
RBI Governor says it is too premature to talk about a rate cut, adds India is moving towards 8% growth rate, and he's sanguine about the growth trajectory. That's an exclusive. RBI is watching the banking sector much more closely than a few years ago, says the governor, adds he is not worried about bank money going into the stock market as things stand. TCS beats estimates in Q1. Constant currency revenue increases by 2.2% sequentially against the estimate of 1.5%. Margin shrinks, but not as bad as markets feared. Management says almost all verticals and major markets have returned to sequential growth.
How many of you believe that the RBI is going to cut interest rates this year? Okay, again, not too many.
India Inc. is not expecting a rate cut anytime soon. Almost all the business leaders at the CNBC TV18-CII town hall say they will expand capacity this financial year. That's another exclusive. The Uttar Pradesh government is likely to issue a clarification on the incentives announced for hybrid cars. Sources say the state will specify which category of cars and at what price range will be exempt from road tax. That's another exclusive. Arvind Dhaam's Vedanta is likely to soon launch a QIP to raise up to 8,000 crore rupees. Sources say Citi, GM Financial and Nuvama are likely to be the bankers. The buzz pushes the stock down 2%. Enforcement Directorate arrests Amtech Group promoter Arvind Dham under provisions of the PMLA in an alleged case of bank fraud worth 25,000 crore rupees. Dham is remanded to 7 days in ED custody. National Testing Agency joins the government in saying there is no need for a retest of the National Medical Entrance Exam. Affidavit in Supreme Court says analysis by IIT Madras shows no evidence of mass malpractice or abnormal scoring patterns in the NEET. Apex Court will now hear the matter on the 18th of July. More Democratic voices, including former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and top Democratic donor George Clooney, demand that US President Joe Biden drop out of the presidential race. The Republican-led US House of Representatives Oversight Committee subpoenas 3 senior White House aides to depose regarding the president's health. NATO leaders pledged $43 billion in military aid to Ukraine. The military alliance calls China a decisive enabler of Russia in a stern rebuke. This is the first time NATO has officially mentioned China as a concern. Also on the show tonight, what are political leaders like Tony Blair and Ramnath Kovind, personalities like Kim Kardashian, Mike Tyson, business leaders like Robert Dudley and Shantanu Narayan doing in Mumbai this weekend? Attending the Anant Ambani Radhika Merchant wedding, of course, most on the guest list in just a bit. Let's start with the day's market action. It was a flat end to a volatile session for the markets. Nifty and the sensex end marginally lower. Mid-caps outperformed. The Nifty FMCG index hit a record high. The top story this evening, TCS kicked off the IT earnings season, beating street expectations in the first quarter. The management says almost all verticals and major markets have returned to sequential growth. Reema Tendulkar joins us now. Reema, decode the numbers for us.
TCS reports a beat on revenues and margins as it declares its Q1 FY25 numbers. Constant currency revenue growth for the company has gone up by 2.2%, ahead of street expectations of 1.5%. This is aided by a strong ramp-up of the BSNL deal, because if you look at the internals, the India revenue has gone up by 14% on a quarter-on-quarter basis. So the top-line growth is a function of the pickup that we've seen in the BSNL deal, but it's a beat on expectation. Margins too at 24% 12.7%. It's down 130 basis points on a quarter-on-quarter basis, but better than street expectation, which was anticipating a decline of 150 basis points due to the wage hike. One reason aiding the margin performance is the sharp contraction in the subcontracting cost. Subcontracting expenses further declined, and that's pushing up the margins. Profits too have come down, have fallen because of the margin pressure, but better than street expectation. Two more internals I'd like to highlight. One, TCV, the total contract value of deal wins stands at $8.3 billion. This is lower than what we've seen in the prior quarter, which was $13.2 billion, but that's because last quarter saw a bump up due to the Aviva deal. $8.3 billion is still within the management's quarterly, deal win run rate of $7 to $9 billion. And on the supply side dynamics, the headcount for the company has gone up after 3 quarters of a decline. So this quarter, they've added nearly 5,500 employees as attrition continues to further tick down to 12.1%. All in all, it's a good showing from TCS, strong start to Q1 FY25.
So when you have a couple of quarters of degrowth, the contribution overall percentage will come down. And also you saw the revenue coming in, BSNL is one of the key revenue levers for us. So when BSNL is non-BFSI and revenue comes from other sources, BFSI contribution naturally comes down.
The big newsmaker this evening, RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das sat down with Lata Venkatesh for an extensive interview. Here are the top highlights from the Governor. Pouring cold water on any rate cut hopes, Governor Das said it is too premature to talk about it. He also tempered hopes of a change in the monetary policy stance. The Governor asserted that inflation remains above 5%, which is still a long way away from the RBI's target of 4%. He also cited the uncertain global environment. When asked about growth, the Governor said that he is sanguine about the trajectory. He said India is moving towards a 8% growth rate and the RBI estimate of 7.2% growth this year is achievable. Governor also held out hope for the banking industry on the proposed tightening of project finance rules. He said that the RBI is open to feedback and what has been proposed are only draft rules. The tenure of the Governor thus ends this year. When asked if government has held talks with him on an extension, Governor replied that he is only focused on his batting.
Whether it is stock markets or the bond markets or, so many components are there, so many segments of the economy. We look at what spillovers they will cause. Now, so far as the banking sector is concerned, we are very closely, we monitor all banking, meaning the credit sector or the credit growth, all that is, this segment is concerned. We very closely watch this position. In fact, much closely than it was, a few years ago, much more closely than a few years ago. And whenever we see possibility of whenever we see some early signs or whenever we feel that a few months down the road there could be a problem in this particular sector or subsector, we act. And an example is the unsecured credit where we took action last year in November. And we increased the risk weights and the results are there to see.
Okay, that's exactly what I'm saying. See, the F&O volumes was something that troubled government, RBI and SEBI has appointed the Padmanabhan committee on it. So do you have this fear that bank money could be fueling the stock market rally? And therefore, is there a case for higher risk weights or even to keep the interest rate, on watch?
You see, so far as bank money going to sort of create some, giving some boost to the stock markets, etc., is concerned, the exposure limits of the banks to the stock market, individual borrowings from, let us say, NBFCs, which were very high earlier for participating in IPOs or for going to the stock market, the IPOs or for FPOs, whatever. Even there we have put a limit of 1 crore. It was all done some 2 years ago. It's not something we did yesterday. So therefore, at the moment, so far as from the point of view of the credit sector, there are no major concerns.
Okay, you don't think fresh controls are needed?
And in any case, banks have their own, end-use monitoring. Only some amount of, you can say, some amount of unsecured credit may go into the stock market.
Exactly.
May go. But so far as unsecured credit is concerned, we have already come out with, we have provided
risk
for
weights.
additional risk weights, and the overall growth of unsecured credit has started moderating.
So you don't think more is needed?
That I cannot say. As and when something is, because it all depends on the numbers and the future outlook. So we keep on constantly evaluating. As and when some measures are required, I can assure you that the Reserve Bank will be proactive.
Okay. You're not done with risk weights?
Depends on how the situation plays out.
Let me come now to the banking sector questions. The two obvious things that the market is waiting for from you is this project finance provisioning. You have raised it to, you want it raised to 5%, and once the project is completed, even then it is coming only to 2.5%. Standard loans is only 0.4%. So you're really asking for a very big provisioning. Is there any chance it will be softened?
You see, what we have given out is a draft circular.
Yes, it's a draft.
In fact, we are now adopting in our regulations, we are adopting a very, very consultative process.
Yes.
And in fact, in the annual report also, if you recollect, or you may have a look, or your viewers may have a look, in the annual report for, last financial year, there's a separate box item, there's a separate annex, where we have listed out all the regulatory measures which we have taken, the number of regulatory measures which followed a consultation with the stakeholders.
Okay.
So we are now actively consulting. There is a consultative approach for making of regulation making. So this is also a part of our consultative approach. What we have put out is a draft circular. We have started receiving comments, and based on the comments that are received, we will examine the comments, and then we will come out with a final circular. The purpose of the draft circular is to adopt a consultative approach to get out external inputs and examine them with all seriousness.
See, this is not a discussion paper. This is a draft regulation. It's
circular.
almost ready to
It's
go.
a draft circular.
So the fear of the industry is that you won't tweak it much.
No, it is a draft. We have said it is a draft. So when I say it is a draft, I am not saying that we will not tweak much, or I am not saying we will tweak it so much. It's a draft circular, and our approach is consultative. We take this consultative process very seriously. The overall economic environment globally, not just in India, globally and in India, it is so uncertain to talk in terms of interest rate cut, that I will do it, 1 quarter away or 2 quarters away. You say something and then you have to sort of take back whatever you have said today. So basically it is the uncertainty which is the one aspect. Second thing is the CPI headline inflation continues to be close to 5%. In fact, as I said, according to the surveys done, it's likely to be again expected to be close to 5%. So therefore, from that context, I think it is too early to talk about interest rate cuts. And I would rather not give, any kind of forward guidance, which may, I said it, I think, somewhere else. I would not like to give any kind of forward guidance which would lead the market players and the stakeholders and others to board the wrong train.
Okay. Would you say the economy is growing faster than potential, or is it growing at potential at this point in time?
Urban demand is holding stable. Rural demand is picking up and is likely to improve. The third component on the demand side, as you would know, is the net exports. Our exports have picked up.
Yes.
Services exports are very strong. So if you put all these things together, I think what we are looking at is that India is on a trajectory of, higher growth. And I said it elsewhere that I think there is a structural momentum to our growth drivers, and we are moving towards 8% growth. What I have said is that we are moving towards that.
Yeah.
So therefore, I am quite sanguine about India's growth. Coming specifically to the potential growth rate, on potential growth rate, I would like to say it is the direction of growth which is important, not the exact number, whether it is 7.2 or 7.5 or 7.7.
And we'll bring you the governor's take on his tenure ending this year in just a bit. You can catch the entire conversation with the RBI governor at 8:30 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. tonight, right here on CNBC TV18. So the RBI governor has effectively ruled out a rate cut in the short term, and India Inc. is not too surprised. Large majority of the business leaders at the CNBC TV18-CII budget town hall said that they are not expecting a rate cut anytime soon. A majority also said that they will expand capacity this financial year.
Let me get a quick show of hands here and do a quick dipstick. What I'm hearing, and this is to my mind not entirely surprising, but I think the sense of urgency and the distress that I'm sensing in this room on that issue has certainly surprised me. Would you say that lack of skilled workforce is amongst your top concerns, your top risks as a CEO today? Those of you who believe that it's amongst your top 3 or top 5 concerns, if you could raise your hands, please. Okay. That's less than half the room, but clearly it is an important area of concern. A quick follow-up question now. How many of you believe that we're going to be able to do, and the CII projection or expectation or forecast is more than 8% growth for FY25? How many of you believe we'll do more than 8% in FY25? Not too many. Okay. How many of you believe that the RBI is going to cut interest rates this year? Okay. Again, not too many. And finally, let me ask you in terms of private capex as well as investment. How many of you are likely to put in fresh capacity, add capacity in FY25? Well, that's a positive note to end this conversation on. A strong show of hands coming in here from industry. I hope you do actually deliver on that, and I would imagine that we are going to see the impact of that play out over the next few quarters.
Resident Indians can now use forex accounts in GIFT City for a wider range of overseas payments. The Reserve Bank has widened the scope of its liberalized remittances scheme. The scheme allows every individual to send up to $250,000 abroad annually. This includes sending gifts abroad and buying property overseas. Remember, earlier such accounts could be opened only to buy securities of overseas companies or foreign education payments. Anil Agarwal-led Vedanta is likely to raise up to 8,000 crore rupees through a qualified institutional placement. This follows a shareholder approval in June for the company to raise up to 8,500 crore rupees. Sources say Citi, GM Financial and Nuvama are likely to be the bankers. The stock fell 2% in trade. Time now for a CNBC TV18 exclusive. The UP government is likely to clarify on the details of their hybrid car policy. Remember, earlier this week, the government had announced a road tax waiver for the segment. However, it did not clarify whether the benefit would be extended to all categories of hybrid cars. We now learn that the Uttar Pradesh government held a meeting to discuss the technical implications of the state's electric and hybrid policy. Representatives of Mahindra and Tata Motors, Maruti and Toyota were present at the meeting. The state's transport department said that they are giving road tax waiver on hybrid cars without any cap or differentiation at present, but there needs to be a clarification. It cannot be for costly cars and may only be for cars in the range of 15 to 20 lakhs. However, a final decision is yet to be taken. Back to the big newsmaker this evening. The tenure of the RBI Governor, Shaktikanta Das, will come to an end in December this year. When asked if the government has spoken to him about an extension, Governor Das replied that he is totally focused on his batting at present and not the next match. He also added that the institution is bigger than the individual.
3 members, external members, their last meeting is in August. And then I think your term is December, Patra's term is till January. The whole NPC changes. Not just for that reason, but that is a very good reason to continue you. So that there is continuity in the NPC and, a job well done. Why should the government disturb? Have they intimated to you anything at all?
See, it is like
we would like you in Wind Street. That's why I'm asking.
It's like this. When there is an assigned, you see, first thing is institutions are bigger than individuals. Whether it is the Reserve Bank as an institution or it is the monetary policy as an institution, the institution is bigger than the individuals. The institutions develop their own momentum, their own discipline, their own principles, guidelines. So institutions will always continue to function. Now coming specifically to this thing, you see, when I am on a particular job, I focus on that job. I am not distracted by other things. Or to use the analogy of cricket, when I am out there batting, I rather focus on my batting and not think whether I am there in the next match or not. So it's that way.
But they have not intimated anything at all about, the post-December person in RBI or your position. No intimation at all from the government.
No, I think, it's again, the question is, I think I said it elsewhere also. As I told you, I'm just focused on my batting currently.
Okay.
Indication, no indication, it doesn't matter to me at all. I am currently in a job. My focus is completely on that job. I try to follow the principles of Arjuna, remain continuously focused on the job at hand, and not get distracted by anything else. And I'm not saying it to sort of make it a kind of a cliched answer or anything. This is what I really mean.
All right, completely focused on the match at hand, job at hand, not thinking about the next assignment or whether I will get an extension or not. That was the word coming in from the RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das. Coming up on India Business Hour, National Testing Agency joins the government in saying there is no need for a retest of the National Medical Entrance Exam. Details when we return. You're watching India Business Hour. The Supreme Court has imposed a 10 lakh rupee fine on Mercedes-Benz India for service deficiency and unfair trade practices. The observation was made on the account of non-deployment of airbags in one of its cars during an accident. The top court rejected the company's argument that cited that airbags on the driver's side did not need to deploy since the driver was restrained by the seatbelt. National Testing Agency has joined the government in saying there is no need for a retest of the National Medical Entrance Exam. In its affidavit to the Supreme Court, the affidavit said that analysis by IIT Madras shows no evidence of mass malpractice or abnormal scoring patterns. Apex Court will now hear the matter on the 18th of July. Ashmit Kumar now joins us with all the details. Ashmit, take us through the affidavit.
Well, the big question looming large is that will there be a cancellation of the overall NEET UG examination? Bear in mind that on Monday, the Apex Court had made this observation that the only way it will go ahead and cancel the exam outright is that if there is evidence to suggest that there has been a widespread leak. Now, on the back of that, the NTA filed its affidavit late last evening and importantly has tried to answer some of those questions, those doubts. As far as widespread leaks are concerned, the NTA says that it roped in the IIT Madras. They did data analysis of various data points across multiple centers, cities, ranks, scores, and at least the long and short of this report is, the NTA says, is that there is a clean sheet, that there is no widespread leak, there is no mass malpractice, there is no anomaly being noticed here, there is no aberration being noticed here. The only anomaly is that there is a slight jump in the number of students scoring above 550, but that's attributable to 25% reduction in the syllabus. On the issue of counselling, the NTA affidavit clarifies that it sees no reason to tinker with that. It's expected to begin in July 3rd and that is the schedule that will be maintained. The only caveat being added is that any student found guilty of such malpractices will not be allowed for these counselling sessions. And finally, on the issue of tightening of regulations, the NTA affidavit says that an expert committee has been constituted, that they have the necessary technical prowess as well as experience. It's being headed by none other than K. Radhakrishnan, the former ISRO chief, and that this committee is expected to give recommendations on tightening this framework even further. So the long and short is the NTA says no reason for cancellation of the exam. The Apex Court yet to take a decision, has deferred the hearing today. We'll take it up once again on July 18th. That's Thursday of next week.
All right. Thanks, Ashmit, for joining us. At least 84 people have died in Assam flood so far. Over 1.4 lakh people across 27 districts have been affected. At least 159 animals have died at the Kaziranga National Park. Water levels of the Brahmaputra have risen above the danger mark in 4 districts, including Guwahati and Tezpur. NATO leaders have pledged to provide Ukraine with at least $43 billion in military aid within the next year. The US will also start deploying longer-range missiles to Germany in 2026 to counter any threat from Russia. The military alliance also called China a decisive enabler of Russia in a stern rebuke. This is the first time that NATO has officially mentioned China as a concern. The pressure on US President Joe Biden to drop out of the presidential race continues to mount. A top Democratic senator has joined the growing list of lawmakers asking Biden to exit the race. Former House Speaker and Biden's longtime ally Nancy Pelosi dodged a question on whether she wanted Biden to run and said he must decide quickly. Actor and filmmaker George Clooney, a top donor to the Democratic Party, has said that Biden should make way for a stronger candidate against Trump. Top business leaders and newsmakers gathered at CNBC TV18-CII budget town hall to put forth their expectations from the upcoming budget. A higher capex allocation to spur consumption, incentives to boost skilled manpower were some of the demands put forth by the industry. India Inc. also pushed for the sunset clause on the 15% concession tax scheme for new manufacturing companies to be extended by 5 more years.
Consequent to COVID, we have seen the cost table, and a lot of it because of external factors has actually gone up. And because of that, there is a challenge on consumption across the world. As far as rural is concerned, given that cost of everything has gone up, what CII is recommending is that the amounts through direct benefit transfer, the amounts through Manrega, and income tax at the lower end, below 20 lakhs, there should be some relief in, and all the other areas should be increased.
Our last 5 years have seen the early benefits of schemes like the PLI scheme. There have been some mistakes along the way also which need to be corrected. I hope we see a version 2 of that, and while we know the budget is for the year, but I hope there's a direction for the next 5 years. What industry needs is a clear glide path of what to expect over, say, the next 5, even 10 years, so that they can invest with confidence. Second, around jobs, getting jobs and skilling. We were just talking to somebody over lunch, and you can't get people, because most people have gone home, and how do you get them back? I think this is another big challenge for industry.
This 15% income tax sunset clause, if you can push it back by another couple of years, or maybe give it a 5-year push, I think it's going to play extremely well. The external environment is positive today. If you look at the environment in terms of interest rate, they're going to fall. You go look at the, despite all the trouble in the world, energy costs are almost flat. You can't ask for a better environment, but we now need to capitalize and move forward.
World leaders, global luminaries, academicians, legendary investors, entertainers and sports personalities will descend in Mumbai this weekend to celebrate the Anant Ambani Radhika Merchant wedding. It's the culmination of 4 months of lavish celebrations that have been held at venues in different parts of the world. The main event will see the who's who of the international community in attendance, making the wedding more than just a glittering ceremony. It will be a powerful symbol of India's growing stature on the global stage. The guest list includes Indian political leaders across the spectrum, from Defence Ministry Rajnath Singh to Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath, West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee, Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin, to Congress leaders Abhishek Manu Singhvi, Kapil Sibal, Salman Khurshid. In a sign of India's rise to the centre stage in global affairs, and as a testament to Reliance Industries and Mukesh Ambani's convening power that positions India as a global leader. Former heads of state will also grace the occasion. Former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair, Boris Johnson, former Italian Prime Minister Matteo Renzi, and former Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper are among the attendees. The guest list also includes heads of Fortune 500 companies like Amir Nasir, the CEO of Aramco, Shantanu Narayan, the CEO of Adobe, Michael Grimes, Managing Director at Morgan Stanley, Amin Nasir, the President and CEO of Aramco, HSBC Group Chairman Mark Tucker, and Emma Wormsley of GlaxoSmithKline. Popular boxing star Mike Tyson, wrestler and actor John Cena, and Kim and Khloe Kardashian, singer Louis Fonsi and rapper Remare are also slated to attend the wedding. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Business Hour. Thank you for watching. News continues right here on CNBC TV18.